We have some serious news right now out of Chicago. Because of the threat to deploy the National Guard, a number of Mexican Independence Day parades and events are now being canceled throughout Chicago. Mexican Independence Day occurs on September 16th, and 3 large events have already canceled their celebrations this year because the administration plans on targeting these Mexican Independence Day events. The El Grito Chicago event, which is an event that drew over 20,000 people last year in Chicago, has been canceled according to the website. It said it was a painful decision, but holding El Grito Chicago at this time puts the safety of our community at stake, and that's a risk we are unwilling to take. While we're torn by the decision, when we brought the celebration back, our aim was to create a safe, affordable, family-friendly community festival for all. And that's not the only one. Others are being canceled as we speak, as the fear imposed by this administration is forcing event organizers to cancel critical community events. Spread the word so more people know. I'll do a full breakdown on my Substack, linked in bio. Subscribe for free. Follow along for all the news you need to know about.
Well, he's finally done it, guys. He's not even trying to hide it anymore. Donald Trump, in a Truth Social post earlier today, declared war on Chicago. He posted this insane AI picture of himself saying, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Chicago is about to find out why it's called the Department of War." But J.B. Pritzker is not backing down to Trump's threats, saying the President of the United States is threatening to go to war with an American city. This is not a joke. This is not normal. Donald Trump isn't a strong man. He's a scared man. Illinois won't be intimidated by a wannabe dictator. That is exactly how every single city should respond that Donald Trump threatens, because if we bend the knee and submit, that is what gives dictators power. But J.B. Pritzker is absolutely right. That is not normal. That's not leadership. That is authoritarianism. I can't think of a president in the history of the United States who has threatened war on their own cities. But Illinois and the rest of America cannot allow this type of behavior to be normalized. We have to fight back and resist. We are seeing in real time how democracies collapse. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens piece by piece, slowly. And Donald Trump keeps testing the waters to see what he can get away with, so we normalize this type of behavior and just allow him to do whatever he wants.
Trump is planning to deploy the National Guard to Chicago as soon as tomorrow, as of me filming this. Chicago is the murder capital of the world. It's not even the murder capital of the country. And on one hand, it's worth noting that crime here and nationwide is down. This summer marks the lowest homicide rate we've had in 60 years, and across the board, crime is down. And if you're so concerned about murder, why aren't you sending troops into Birmingham, Alabama, where the murder rate is more than 3 times what it is here, or one of the many other cities that have higher murder rates than Chicago? But I think that's missing the forest for the trees, because of course this isn't about crime. That's not what this is about. Trump is trying to use the military to occupy a U.S. city and suppress political dissidents. If this were happening in any other country, we would have no problem calling it what it is, which is an authoritarian power grab by a dictator. Sorry. We need a united front here, because this endangers everyone. It is a fundamental threat to all of our civil liberties, potentially setting a precedent that would erode our freedoms across the board and grant Trump even more unchecked power. We cannot concede to the idea that we will willingly give up some of our constitutional freedoms for this spurious promise of safety. And on that note, let's go see how the news is covering this.
I actually think that J.B. Pritzker should do something radical. I think he should pick up the phone, call the president, and say, you know and I know you don't have the constitutional authority to deploy the National Guard here and to police my. You can do that in D.C., you can't do that in Chicago. But let's partner up. These are the most dangerous parts of my state.
Hey, look, we know you can't legally do this, but what if instead of fighting you on this blatant overreach and violation of your constitutional powers and limitations, we just partnered up with you to do authoritarianism? You know, we can send you into the scary parts of Chicago. Interpret that as you'd like. The manufacturing consent is crazy. 58 shot over Labor Day weekend in Chicago as governor rejects Trump threat to send National Guard. Dog, look at my information environment. Are you kidding me? It's so much more profitable to sensationalize fear and crime. We cannot survive a profit-oriented news cycle like this. It's a move against everyone in this country, citizen and non-citizen alike. It is unconstitutional by every metric, and we need to meet them where they are. Timothy Snyder has an interesting point in On Tyranny, which is that most authoritarian power is freely given by people who obey in advance. Do not obey in advance.
Y'all... Listen, it's the weekend, so we casual, but I still got the tea, and I'm gonna wrap it up in a nutshell. Listen, kidnappers from other countries, you've been warned. President Donald John Quavius, he got some stiff penalties when Americans go to other countries and get kidnapped by those insurgents and stuff. Okay, listen up. He says, number one, if somebody from your country kidnaps somebody from our country to try to use them as a political bargaining tool, there will be economic sanctions, basically fines. So you touch one of ours, Ike Turner, fine your ass. Okay. Then he's going to ban officials and their families from visiting the U.S. Well, their U.S. visa. So basically, you or your family cannot come to the greatest country in the world ever. All right? So rein your folks in. Tell them don't touch our folks. Also, he's going to restrict U.S. passports there. So U.S. citizens will not be able to travel there. So there go your tourism dollars too. On top of that, he's going to cut off U.S. aid and weapons sales. So you'll not get money from us, and you won't get those grade A Tony Stark weapons that we was going to let you buy. Also, he's going to block exports. Listen, get your people and tell them they better not touch one hair on an American citizen's head when we step off the plane over there, or there will be consequences and repercussions. All right, moving on. Donald John Cuevas is adding items to the tariff list, including pharmaceuticals. Let me tell you what that means. He had been said to the pharmaceutical companies, it is not right for you to be sitting up charging Americans upwards of $1,000 for medicines that they need for their survival and their health, but you charging people from other countries and other countries pennies on the dollar for that same pharmaceutical. He said, no, you're not going to break our citizens. You're not going to tax our citizens like that. So we on the road to making it where whatever you charge them folks over there, that's what you better charge American citizens. And he not playing with y'all. I love it. Next, he changed the Department of Defense name to the Department of War. He kind of telling y'all the Department of Defense sounds really weak. And we ain't no weak country. We ain't no punk ass bitch. So when you hear him say, I'm sending so-and-so over to talk to you from our Department of War, that kind of lets you know we ain't coming to play with your ass. Go Donald John Cuevas. I ain't got no problem with that. Next, our president and leader, Donald John Cuevas, sent ICE to Chicago. But Chicago Mayor Lil Mohawk Johnson, he said he's going to protect the illegal immigrants from deportation. And he's also fighting the National Guard from coming there to clean up crime in the streets of Chicago. Ho, is you the criminal? Because you acting awfully suspect right now. And it's just weird at this point. Next, the impeachment talks have kind of settled down when it comes to Donald John Cuevas because the approval ratings are shooting through the roof. Democrats, you're very silent. I don't get it. So now you don't have anything to say. You about as useless as pedals on a wheelchair. So again, I don't expect that party to even last long because you've been so ridiculous. Lastly, the next G20 meeting will be held at President Donald John Cuevas' Miami resort. That sounds like a great time, but he's going to show them how it's supposed to be done when you host, a panel of leaders. Anyway, let me go enjoy my Saturday. I want you to enjoy yours too, or the rest of it. And you guys have a great weekend. God bless you. God bless America. And God bless Donald John Cuevas Trump. I'll talk to y'all on the next one. Love y'all. Bye.
All right, my fellow Illinoisans, especially in Chicago, President Donald Trump just posted on his social media that he is ready to go to war with Chicago. That pretty much he loves the smell of deportations in the morning. And then it said Chicago is about to find out why it's called the Department of War. And he was sitting on some stump with air helicopters flying in the background like animated. What is wrong with this man? Pritzker says he is not backing down, that he's ready to take this to courts and has papers and stuff ready to go in front of the courts. However, President Donald Trump is calling his bluff, and he is sending military and ICE into the city of Chicago to put on there that he loves the smell of deportations in the morning. What a disgusting way to describe that. Let me know what your thoughts are in the chat. Bye.
I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Chicago is about to find out while we called it the Department of War. This was via real he wrote this on Truth Social about an hour ago. I love the smell of deportation in the morning. He had a fake photo of himself as a cowboy on his Truth Social page. So he says that that Chicago's fixing to find out while they changed the name from the Department of Defense to the Department of War. And he has a photo of himself as some sort of cowboy. I somehow ended up on some live Fox channel, and it's so fucking nauseating. I don't know how people do it. I mean to tell you, if we don't all come after Fox, I don't know what we're doing. But please do me a favor if you would. There is a posted duet, and I've asked this gal if we could do a live together, she and I. If you happen to, and then I sent her a message and tried to post the video of it, or the picture of it, of the message that I sent her, but I'm not allowed to leave any photos in the comments anymore in her little thing. So if anybody could, she'll see any comments that you make on that video because she's tagged in it until she goes private, which she's liable to go private, but maybe not. They say bad publicity is publicity, and there's going to be some bad bones that are going to think that's a great idea to just shut down an entire Hyundai plant that's being built in Georgia. And then she said something about tax dollars. The people that are upset about this, that's not, it's because of your tax dollars, maybe whatever. No, honey, Georgia doesn't have any tax dollars. Those were all federal tax dollars. Knock yourself out trying to figure that out. Those were California tax dollars, honey. They're still saying open borders. Honey, child, Trump didn't do shit to shut those borders.
The Trump administration is getting ready to deploy the U.S. military to Chicago, just as they've done in D.C. and Los Angeles thus far. Now, Trump has repeatedly said that he's going to deploy National Guard troops all across the country to Democrat cities, supposedly to clean up the crime. However, they're sending ICE agents too. Now, as many of you may know, Trump signed an executive order changing the name of the Department of Defense to Department of War. And in a Truth Social post this morning, he shared this. Yes, that's a picture of Trump. There are military helicopters there. What does that say? Chapocalypse now. I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Chicago is about to find out why it's called the Department of War. Now, supposedly, as Trump said, they changed the name to Department of War so that other countries could believe that we are stronger and more powerful. However, now he's saying Chicago is about to find out why it's called the Department of War. So are the other Democrat-run cities, and the Pentagon just authorized use of the Naval Station Great Lakes, which is just outside of Chicago, for the ICE agents, 250 federal agents, and 140 vehicles, military vehicles, to be stationed so that they can deploy troops into Chicago, and they're going to just sweep as many immigrants as possible. These immigration raids clearly are not focused on just getting criminals out of our country who don't belong here. They're sweeping everybody up. They have for months. And now they're going to every Democrat-run city. Now, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson has signed an executive order outlining their plan to push back on Trump's plan to invade the city of Chicago. And this order directs all agencies and law enforcement, all city agencies, to resist cooperation with federal immigration enforcement, citing escalating threats from the federal government. Now, Trump said that Chicago is the murder capital of the world, and of course he said that about D.C. as well, and he will continue to say that about every Democrat-run city. I will keep you updated on all of these things. What are your thoughts? Do you want this to occur in your city? I will keep you updated. Please like, follow, and share so that I can continue to provide you with content, and I appreciate you being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing true presidential greatness. Forget healthcare. You still care about that? Forget fixing the economy. Trump just dropped the hardest AI meme of 2025. My boy really put himself in a poster with helicopters and a full-on army uniform. Like he's about to liberate Chicago from pupusas and tacos. Incredible. That's true leadership. And I gotta respect the vision. He's not just running with ICE raids anymore. Nah, he's renaming the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Genius. Why stop there? We should rename the DMV to the Department of Pain and Suffering. Because every time I go there, I feel like I'm in a living nightmare. As a matter of fact, every time Trump renames a government agency, we should all take a shot of tequila. And his strategy, flawless. Just the name Chicago coming out from our Commander-in-Chief's mouth has canceled every Mexican Independence Day festival all throughout Chicago. It has scared families from going outside because the Demis need to understand that law and order must be restored to Chicago. And what better way than to scare all the kids eating elotes and having a fun time? I forgot to mention, these are dangerous kids, by the way. I don't have any proof, but I definitely don't have any doubts. And of course, some haters like the governor and the mayor are calling him wannabe dictators. But nah, I see vision. Who needs democracy when we got Trump dropping AI fan art like he's a SoundCloud rapper? This is the future, baby. So yeah, salute to the Commander-in-Chief out here fighting immigrants one AI image at a time. History is gonna remember this day. Qué pendejada, tío.
I try my best not to cover the things that Donald Trump puts on the platform he calls truth, but this one felt particularly important because today, the president of these United States declared via tweet the occupation of and war against an American city. We are in a civil war. And I've been using the Civil War language in part talking about the arms race happening for congressional seats, because just like in the 1800s when there was a push to figure out which states would be slave states and which states would be free states, and those compromises and conflicts eventually led to the first American Civil War, we've had this arm race for congressional seats to figure out which will be really blue states and which will be really red states. And you have Texas that's just stealing congressional seats from Democrats and handing them to Republicans while also eliminating the voice of black and brown voters in the state. And you have Gavin Newsom in California being like, I bet. And obviously you've had moments that have led to this, whether it was the insurrection of January 6, 2021, in which a violent mob stormed the Capitol on Donald Trump's behalf, or if we're talking about the assassination of a Democratic leader here in the state of Minnesota and the attempted assassination of another, or if we're talking about the multiplicities of ways in which Donald Trump's secret police have been as unidentified masked operatives going into cities and snatching people off the street regardless of their legal status. The consolidation of power, the political retribution to universities, organizations, and departments in the United States government based on their loyalty to Donald Trump. It should also be noted that Donald Trump sent troops into the city of Los Angeles to solve a problem that he started by sending his secret police in, snatching people off the streets, and the citizens stood up against it. And so he occupied Los Angeles, and now he's looking to occupy Chicago in the same way that he federalized D.C. And in doing so, he changed D.C. from the seat of democracy to the seat of the president. He's now looking at his two biggest political opponents, Gavin Newsom and J.B. Pritzker, and looking to occupy their states. This is a civil war. And while history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, it does rhyme. And I'm going to be right here dissecting these rhyme schemes so we can understand what's happening and what might come next. Until then, thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Guys, we're a mere 5 days out from this anniversary of 9/11, and Donald Trump has just posted a meme with the city of Chicago, America's third largest, on fire, including the skyscrapers. And even worse than that, he's expressly threatening, in his own words, to use the U.S. military in an act of war and violence against the civilians of that iconic location. Let's go through it so you understand the full depth of what's going on. So you have the city of Chicago in the background burning, you have military helicopters in the air, and it says Apocalypse Now. That is a scene from the movie Apocalypse Now, depicting Vietnam, a war in which 2 million civilians died, a lot of times in horrible ways through Agent Orange and other means. And in this specific scene, they just dropped napalm on a civilian neighborhood or a village and burned a bunch of innocent people to death. Now, of course, you got Donald Trump, the 5-time draft dodger, pretending like he was in the military, even though he's a complete bone spurs coward. But the most important part of this entire thread is at the bottom where it says, the city of Chicago is about to find out what the Department of War, what that name really means. Now, when you look at that, you say Department of War, well, that means Department of Defense, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force. And listen to what Pete Hegseth said yesterday at this, ceremony to change the name, illegally, I might add. And he said we need to be less legal and more lethal, meaning we need to break the law and commit acts of violence. So put this all together, it's unmistakable what he means. And the question is, will people in culture, music, in the media, will they call this out for what it really is? I mean, this is worse than dictator type behavior. Vladimir Putin never even did this, even though he kills all kinds of people all around the world. Well, this is where we are. This is where we're at. I'll call it out even if those other people don't. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.
I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Chicago is about to learn the meaning of the Department of War. That was not from a foreign enemy of the United States. No, no, no. That is from the white supremacist house. That is from your POTUS, also my POTUS, who is effectively declaring war on American city under the guise of deportations and crime. If anybody ever, Republican or Democratic, made a blanketed statement about an American city, every pundit who is versed its mantle would be in an uproar. But instead, the cult is so powerful, they're just going to pretend it's nothing to it. It's nothing to it. An American president who likes to talk and legislate and govern via memes. It is so bizarre that this is our reality. It is so surreal. It is so surreal.
In the history of wild Donald Trump tweets, this one is near the top. Donald Trump just tweeted this image of him with the title Shy-pocalypse. In other words, Apocalypse Chicago. And then it has the text that he loves the smell of deportations in the morning, and that Chicago is about to find out why it's called the Department of War. It just changed the Department of Defense name back to its original name, Department of War. So obviously a very unusual tweet from a sitting president talking about one of the country's premier cities. And yet this is, of course, Donald Trump's style. He likes to be provocative. He likes to stir things up. I'm curious what you think about this, because obviously Republicans like to sort of chuckle as Democrats take this very seriously and wide-eyed report on it. Democrats, of course, are alarmed at the precedent it sets and the very realities behind it, which is an actual sending in of troops to an American city. Would love to hear your thoughts, and of course stay tuned, because it does seem that National Guard troops will be sent to Chicago perhaps imminently.